Okay, so here we go. So we want to start off like talking about some of the things that we are waiting to hear from. So a lot of things that are happening are we're waiting on some state decisions. As most of you know, schools are closed to the end of April. It is our feeling that it will be closed for the year. Baltimore City has started doing virtual learning with their kids in schools, and each district around Maryland has been doing this patchwork of training and teaching for their kids. And even in districts, it's been kind of spotty. So across the state, everyone's waiting for the state to make some decisions about school closures and what that looks like for health-wise in terms for our kids. The other thing that we're waiting for from the state is some decisions around praxis testing, testing centers being closed. Right now, they're closed to April 16th. Realistically, they're going to be closed for longer that we feel because of how long the COVID virus is going to be with us for a while. So those are some things that we're looking for from the statewide that makes an impact on some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So to give you some background on some of these things, everyone is looking for some answers from the state. So it's just not our program. So across the state, you have programs like ours, TFA. You also have seniors that are in programs for universities that need praxis testing and are entering the programs. And so those students are waiting for, to enter into teaching for some of these decisions around testing, as well as current teachers. So in Baltimore, we have a number of teachers that are waiting for praxis testing to complete their certification as their provisional certifications ending. So some of our 2018 school board are in that same boat. They have some testing that needs to be taken care of before their provisional runs out. So there are a lot of people in the same boat, and the state, if it comes to that, will need to do some things. A couple of things that we are doing right now. So I am and Tavon are working with the Baltimore City School District on a weekly basis. So I've been meeting with what's called human capital. It's like their human resources for the whole city school system. So we've been working with them on how they're going to be doing hiring, how are they going to be doing job fairs and things of that nature. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We are also working with Mercedes, Tavon, and myself are also working with other fellows or residency programs around the country. So we've been on task forces to share resources with other fellow programs. Some of you've seen some of the fellow programs when you did your application, like in Nevada and New Orleans, but we're also working with other district fellows programs in states like San Francisco, Charlotte, and things of that nature. So I say all that to say that we are working with a lot of people, and there's a lot of heads being put together to come up with a solid plan for not only testing, hiring, and summer training. So there's a lot going into that. So I wanted to say that at the top. So let's talk. So there's a couple questions. I'm going to pull those up that people had. And I'm going to address a couple of the questions around praxis first. So a lot of people were asking questions around praxis, deadlines for praxis testing. What if you don't pass praxis testing before those deadlines or have to retake the exams? What if you can't pass by September? Does it affect your job? So a couple of things about praxis testing that are happening right now. You may have seen that we pushed the deadline for praxis testing to the end of May. And so we're going to do everything in our power to help you get those praxis tests in as soon as possible. Like I said at the top, we still don't know when testing centers are going to be open. Right now, you can still get register for praxis testing. I know some of you recently have registered for tests as early as in mid-May. I know a couple of you I've seen have gotten tests, the earliest that you get is June, and that's okay. We want you to register for the earliest test that you can. We know that depending on where you are or what test you're you're signing up for, the date may go past May. So what we're asking is to register for the earliest test you can. Let me know as soon as you know that date, but register soon. If you have to retake a test, if you've already taken a test and know that you need to retake it, they usually have a 21-day time between tests that you've taken. So we've been on quarantine for longer than that. So you can re-register for another exam if you need to retake. And you can retake as many times as you want, but we are saying that you need to re-register as soon as you can for those exams if you have not passed. So currently, praxis testing is still needed for your certification, your provisional certification in September. And as of right now, it's still needed for hiring for city schools. So what, again, like we said at the top, we're still looking for the state to make some decisions about testing centers and then possible policy changes that relate to those testing centers if this goes into May. So right now, testing centers are open to, or supposed to be open by April 16th. When they make certain decisions whether to keep them closed or not, we'll update on deadlines and things of that nature for praxis. Talking about hiring. So hiring, I had a couple questions about hiring. So someone asked about hiring fair in May, what the hiring process will look like, what would hiring look like if you do not have your praxis testing currently. So like I said, I've been meeting with human capital for city schools for each week. And the last conversation I had with them on Tuesday, they are still wanting for us to have teachers into the program. Right now, because they're still waiting also for state regulations or state decisions, they're holding to having the Praxis 2 and Praxis Core completed before hiring. They are hoping that the state will make some decisions that may change that. So this year we're in an odd position because we have various state policies that were already in process of changing that some of you may have heard about. And so because of the COVID-19, that's had some impact. And so like us, the Baltimore City Schools is looking at how they're going to proceed forward. With that said, the overwhelming sentiment from city schools is that they need teachers. They will need teachers, their teachers to stay that are or have lapsing provisional certifications that need that testing. And they also need the teachers that we are supplying through our program for Teach for America for urban teachers. That's hundreds of teachers that are in need of some revision or leeway in terms of praxis testing. And so we are confident that something will be done to mitigate any issues in terms of like hiring for praxis testing. But as it stands right now, we are end of May for having your praxis test in. If you can't get a date in May, get the earliest date you can and let me know so that we can have that on record. And then City Schools is still hiring. So City Schools right now has opened up hiring for outside or external applicants. So for those of you that are currently completed Praxis Core and Praxis 2, you are open to accept positions in city schools. Right now, most principals are have other focuses than hiring right now. They are working with their school going online. They are working with their students being out of school for a while and trying to get a handle on their school situation. In talking to city schools, human capital, they are giving principals guidance on how to do online interviews with potential applicants. And so that has just started with those principals. So it's going to be slow for them to start reaching out to outside applicants as they're getting used to the tools to employ their school. As far as like the job fairs, so human capital is still planning on doing job fairs. they have come to the realization that a lot of them will probably need to be virtually. And so they are currently right now looking into platforms that can facilitate that some tech companies use to facilitate job fairs for their companies. So that is something that's in the works. As I get more information about the job fairs and when principals have been brought up to speed for virtual hiring, I will let you know. But that is in the works right now. That City School is working diligently on trying to bring all their principals up to speed to be able to get people hired into their schools. And then I had another question about relocation and how that works with summer programming. So Mercedes is going to talk a little bit about summer programming in a minute, but there are a couple of services that I'm going to be sending out to people around relocating. One of them is called Teacher Props. Teacher Props works with teachers in Baltimore City to help them find housing at either discounted rates or no security deposit and things of that nature. And they send out a monthly newsletter updating on things that are available and some tips on finding a placement in Baltimore City. As well, I'm going to send out a couple of teacher-centric housing apartments or complexes. Astor Court, Union Mill, and Miller's Court are the names of those apartment complexes. They have teaching communities. They have really nice apartments. They're centered, pretty much center of the city. But I'll be getting that information out to everyone as well, whether you're local or looking to relocate. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mercedes to talk about the pre-service training this summer and what that looks like and some of the things that her team is planning for you guys this year.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see those of you who I can see your face and those of you who I can't. It's nice to see that you are here and with us. So I know the biggest question on everybody's mind is training going to happen during the summer if we are still in a lockdown or if there is still a stay-at-home or shelter-in-place order? And the answer to that is yes. PST or pre-service training is still going to happen. We are actually in the process right now as an entire organization, TNTP, but more intentionally BCTR, into taking our current training platform and structure and restructuring it into a place where it can take place virtually. So we do want you to know that we will still be training teachers. We are actually very excited about what this new platform could look like because it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of training and emphasis on certain things that we didn't necessarily have the capacity to do in the past. So keep in mind that training will more than likely happen virtually unless all of a sudden the world opens back up and kids are back in summer schools and we are all able to move around. As it stands right now with the uncertainty and the way that things are going and some of the patterns that we're kind of seeing from other countries, I highly doubt that is going to be something that happens. Like in May, all of a sudden, April showers brings May flowers. But that is something that I wanted to touch on. I know that some in that general aspect is then thinking about, well, what happens if there is no summer school, or what happens if summer school is virtual, what those two possibilities could look like. So I'll start with the first one. If there is no summer school, meaning there aren't any children inside of brick and mortar buildings ready to learn for summer school, what will happen is you will still have what we call field experience time, but field experience time will then not be with kids. We will find a way to have a simulated space in order for you to practice delivering lessons, to practice some of the techniques and strategies that we are going to teach you, and then to know that when you go into the classroom in the fall, when there are students, that you are going to have some really intensive coaching support from the BCTR team as you transition into taking your training from a virtual world in person with kids in Baltimore City. So that's something that I wanted to highlight and call out for you as well. On the flip side of that, if there is summer school and summer school ends up being virtual, we are in communications with the district right now, and those who are over summer learning in the district. We have weekly meetings with them, and so we are trying to stay up to date on where they are in terms of virtual learning for the summer. As soon as we get definitive information from them, then we can take that information and implement it into our training model. And so there is a possibility that your field experience time could be summer teaching, but doing it virtually with students. Now, the third possibility, which is probably the least likely of the possibilities, is that there is summer school, and summer school is with students inside of buildings. And if that is the case, then we will go back to the model that has worked for us for the past 18 years as we've trained teachers, and you will be teaching in a summer school with students in a building. So I wanted to call that out because I know that that was a question that people had.
Mercedes, can I jump in really quickly?
Sure.
I think everything that Mercedes said is absolutely correct. And those are three different models, depending on what actually comes of COVID-19 and the current space that we're in. I think the thing that I would need to call out to everyone on this call is that training is going to be so much more important. It's always been important. But every element of training is going to be that much more important, that folks walk away with the skills that are being taught during pre-service training. Because if you're not in front of kids, like the goal is going to be that you know everything that you need to know, those foundational skills, so that when you enter that classroom, then you're getting that coaching on those relationships and making those connections. And your coach doesn't need to then go back to all of those foundational skills that were taught during the summer. So definitely a possible shift, but very, very important.
That was a really good call out. I think another big question is around training dates and the finalization of those. Is it going to be pushed back? Will it still be in June? Our PST is still going to start at the same time. So tentatively, PST will still start June 24th. We are thinking about the sustainability of what online learning could look like. And so while we could keep the same schedule and still end by July 31st, tentatively, I'm going to continue to say tentatively, I think it may be more beneficial in the long run if we give ourselves some buffer time at the end so that you all are not sitting on computers for 6 to 8 hours a day. Like, the sustainability of that model is something that we are taking into consideration, given that many of you probably have your own students and families and things that are also going on online, as well as our part-time staff who are coming in to train and instruct you as well. So as we're going into this new virtual world of what training could look like, because of the COVID pandemic, I do want you all to know that we are taking into consideration how we can continue to make this a humanizing training while also being rigorous enough to put you in a position to be effective and successful in the fall when you go into the school year. Because if you are effective and if you are successful, then our students will be in the best place that they can possibly be. And this is just going to be a interesting time and a challenging time for many of our kids who've been out of school for 6 months to transition back into the classroom in the fall. And so as a district, as a state, as a country, I think we're all going to be learning at the same time as we go back into the fall, what it looks like to support students who may not have had the coursework or the community of a classroom for that long of a period of time. And so I do want to call out, when we're thinking about the training dates, we're still tentatively starting at the end of June, taking up almost all of July. And so you want to make sure that that period of time is still open for you to be a participant in the training process. I think I may have answered Sean, you let me know. Am I missing anything?
Let me check the document real quick. I think that was it. I think a lot of questions about the start times for pre-service training, summer school. We talked about delays in training. Someone did ask a question here that I don't think I addressed, was when should we anticipate applying to specific schools? And I touched a little bit on this. So applications for schools is open to our residents currently. At the same time, you still need to have your Praxis Core and Praxis 2 exams completed in order to do that. And so if you've done that, we've added that to the tracker that we share with city schools, and they've opened up your application for you to apply for specific school positions. So if you have done that and you want to actually go in and look at what school positions are available currently, you can do that. And that's open to you. Like I said at the top, though, it's those positions, although we're officially in hiring season, that the number of schools on that list won't be vast yet. The hiring season goes into August. So I know some of you may be worried, like, I don't have my Praxis, or all the job's going to be gone by the time I get my Praxis scores together. And I think I mentioned this in all my welcome calls with you guys, is all the 18 years that we've been in existence, for those people that pass the pre-service training, we've been able to place 100% of those people in positions. Each year, hiring is bumpy, to be honest with you. There's always a very different thing that happens, that comes up. If you've ever worked in a government agency, you know that policies change from year to year. And so each year we have something different to do. This year, although this is an incredibly huge obstacle in terms of the COVID virus, it is, again, something that is that we'll get through. The bottom line that I want to leave people with is that City Schools has repeatedly talked to myself and Tavon and Mercedes that just wanting reassurance that we're still bringing teachers in. They desperately want to have new teachers into City Schools. And they are, even though they are waiting for the state to make decisions around testing and policies around certification, they are very motivated to have new teachers in. And that is a huge concern that they bring up to us. So in terms of like how we get there, it's going to be a little bit, two steps forward, one step back, to be honest. But we will get there, and we will. There will be jobs for those that complete the pre-service training and pass. But I think that's all the questions that we had going through. Tavon, did you want to say anything for the cohort before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I think you kind of covered it. I think the biggest thing or messages that I've gotten from people is whether or not this is still happening and if people will be able to secure jobs. And the answer to both of those things, as you guys have stated, is yes. We're still going to have a 2020 cohort. Yes, there's still going to be positions open. I think like right now we're asking that people are patient as we are figuring out what the impact of COVID is on how this cohort looks, as well as how we execute the pieces that we have executed, as Mercedes said, for over 18 years. But things are rolling, and we're excited to meet everyone.
Great. So a couple of things that I'm going to leave you with. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take a questions live because we have over 42 people on the call today, which is great. Our cohort right now is almost 90 people. So that's encouraging. We are expecting to have 150 people start this cohort with us. So we're on our way to do that. So like Tavon said, we are excited. We are, you had any doubts that this was going to happen, it is definitely happening. It's going to be very different, but that's a challenge that we're excited about. And I think it's a great challenge for this cohort coming in. You have the unique opportunity to be on the beginning of learning some virtual tools of teaching, as I think this is going to be something that schools are going to have to embrace going forward. So that's great. I have one question. Can I email you specifically on some question? Yes. After this call, please feel free to email me at my email, and the same email address that this call came to you guys on. Just reply back to me if you have specific questions that we did not address. There's a couple things that are coming up. So I'm going to develop a frequently asked questions around the session that I'll put up and send out to everyone that's currently enrolled and people that will come in to be enrolled. One of the first steps that we have to working towards this online pre-service training is that we have a preview day. So our current last preview day was supposed to be a week ago in person, and that was canceled because of the COVID-19. That is going to happen at the end of April. And it's going to be virtual. So you'll have a session with teachers and coaches. You'll get to meet some alumni, and that will be your first entrance into training and how this model is going to work in terms of going into pre-service training. So look out for that by Friday, if not Friday, Monday. Again, please email me if you have any questions and need anything. And then, if you have some questions, myself and Tavon, and I think Mercedes will stick around and try to take some live calls. So if you don't have any questions, you can jump off the call, and then we'll hang around and try to answer some questions because we have some time to do that. Other than that, I think that is it. Like I said, feel free to jump off the call or email if you have questions. We're going to give it about a minute or so as people log off, and then we will take some calls and questions for people. Okay, so I have our first question, and it looks like Stacy raised her hand to ask a question. I'm going to unmute you, Stacy, and you can ask your question.
Hi, thank you. It's Stacia, by the way.
Stacia, oh, sorry.
That's all right. It is a weird and challenging name, so I'm just used to it. At any rate, I was wondering whether we'll be recharged or charged additionally if we were registered for a praxis that got canceled or postponed, and how to work with ETS around that.
So right now, my understanding is that if your test was postponed, they're giving you the option to reschedule and not have a fee associated that if it was there on their end that they postponed it.
Okay.
And so I've known a couple people that have scheduled their tests, and it was just as simple as contacting them. It may be a little bit difficult contacting them, but people have been rescheduling tests. Like I said, this week I saw someone get one test rescheduled for mid-May.
Okay, great. Then I'll do that tomorrow. Thank you.
Great. All right, John, I'm going to unmute you. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so hi, good afternoon, everybody. I apologize for being late. Well, I was asking if I could email you specifically, but I'm going to ask my question anyways.
Mm-hmm.
My question is off of Stacia's question. So I reschedule, and yes, they do not charge you in regards to any postponement. I've already noticed that for myself. But I rescheduled for in May, and I know there was a deadline that's associated with it. Is that deadline still standing?
Yes, so at the top, I talked to everyone, and that our deadline has been moved back to the end of May. And we are looking at if the COVID shutdown goes longer, extending that. If you cannot get a date in May, get the earliest date that you can and let me know that date. And we will have that in your file to honor that going into the summer training. But the end of May is still the deadline. I
have a date. Yeah, I apologize. I have a date for May. That's
fine, and that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask. Tanika, I see you're unmuted.
Yes, I just was wondering about the like residency. You was talking about like relocating. What if you already relocated? Will they help you where you're staying at now to pay your rent or whatever?
So there isn't a official TNTP relocation fund or service. For those that qualified for the BEC cohort, there are some funds for that. If you would have been notified through your application if you were eligible for that. If you are eligible and did not submit your application, please do so now, because that will be some help to you. But in terms of that, there aren't any official help for relocating. The Teacher Props program does do some work in helping teachers find housing, and find discounts and deals with that. But other than that, there isn't an official relocation fund.
Okay.
Floor is open to anyone that wants to jump in.
Yes, I was trying to understand that email I received one time in regards to the stipend that they provide you. So that is something that they will provide you during the summertime that you're in training?
Yes, so that's part of the BEC cohort. BEC cohort stands for the Black Educators of Excellence. It is a fund that was given to us by an outside donor that really wanted to help elevate Black teachers in Baltimore City schools, as Baltimore City definitely, there's a shortage of African-American teachers teaching in Baltimore City, where our population of students is overwhelmingly African-American. And so that outside funder has provided some funds for stipends and things of that nature. So that application that you got has some information on it about how to apply. If you need some help with that, please email me, let me know, and I can contact you, put you in with the right people and help you get that application through so that you can have access to that.
Is it possible I could have, I don't know if I may have lost it, but is it possible I can have that resent to me?
Absolutely. Just send me an email so that I remember, and then I'll get that information back out to you.
Absolutely, I'll send you that.
Mm-hmm.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess just regarding the orientation that was meant to take place towards end of May, is something equivalent like that still planned, or is it now just, are we now looking at just sort of going right into pre-service training in June whenever that is ready to start?
No, so there will still be an orientation. The first thing you'll get is this preview day in the next few days. And then after that, shortly after that, you'll get options. There's usually two options for orientation. So there's a end of May option and a beginning of June option. So they're like weeks before training. So just to talk a little bit about orientation. So what we do during orientation is you do have some sessions with us that help you get acclimated to the training that you're going to be doing during the summer. One of the things we do is get you what's called district processed, which you meet with district officials around your employment. So signing up for your contract, getting signed up for healthcare and 401k, and understanding some of the policies of city schools. That process is being put mostly online. And so they're working on that. They actually started this work towards the end of last year. And so it's fortunate that they're able to accelerate that now because of the COVID-19 shutdown. So that process is going to be online. So we won't necessarily have that as part of our orientation, but it will be a lot more focused on training. We'll also have a lot more focus on hiring. We'll have some city school officials that will talk about hiring as well as myself. And then we also try to have some social events as well with it. So depending on where we are with COVID, it may be a Zoom party for us, but we would love to have an in-person time as well. So that's what we're planning right now. Orientation is usually like two or 3 days. This year it'll probably be just 2 days if we're doing it virtually, and you'll get that information soon.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Will there be, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I do apologize for any background noise. I have 2 toddlers in the background. Will there be a sort of short summary of what I hopped on the call late? And so will there be like a short summary of what was discussed sent out to everyone?
Yes, so I am recording this call right now. And so once I'm get it rendered, I will put it up and email a version of it to everyone so they can review for people that couldn't get on the call. I'm also going to make a frequently asked questions around the COVID conversation that we just had. So just reviewing some of the questions that people had and putting some answers from myself, Mercedes, and Tavon in that one pager for people, so that for you guys to know. But as people are becoming enrolled into the program, that'll be something that they can read as they come into the enrolled status.
Perfect. And just one specific question I had about the online course. What deadline is that for that to be done?
So the online course that we send out as part of your enrollment, it is an enrollment course that helps you get into the right mindset of training. So it is centered around Teach Like a Champion, and those that 20-hour course is self-paced, and it's really due before you start pre-service training. So sometime by mid-June you should be done with it. I know most people, because they're in quarantine and can't really go anywhere, have started completing those coursework, and so that might be, we usually say it's one of the last things you do, but since you have time, you can jump right into it. Like I said, it's 20 hours. It's self-paced, so you don't have to sit. If you want to do half an hour every other day, or however you want to plan out that coursework, it's really up to you. But we say by mid-June you should be completed with it.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had another question. So are we supposed to be studying at the same time for the Prax Core and for the Prax 2 test?
Yes, so that's a good question. So before you became enrolled, you had to register for your Praxis 2. The Praxis 2 is the most important exam, and the one that you really should focus on completing and study for, because there's no substitute for that exam. You have to take that exam. The Praxis Core is definitely needed. There's a couple of things that can replace the Praxis Core. So you can take the ACT, if you've taken the ACT or plan to take the ACT, if you have a qualifying score of 24 or higher combined for that test, you can use that instead of Praxis Core. For SAT, you can use a qualifying SAT score if you've taken it before, after 1995, but before 2018, and you have a combined score of 1100 with your math and language arts score of 1100, that's a qualifying score. If you've taken GRE and you have a combined score of 297, that is a qualifying score. And so there's a couple options. Some people have taken at least one of those tests in their undergrad work. The other thing that is a possible but is not available to us yet, there's some policy changes being made around using a 3.0 in your undergrad or master's, whichever was the last one you've taken, to replace taking the Praxis core. That one is not available to us yet, but there's a possibility that it would be available in the coming months. So with that said, Praxis 2 is the most important. There's no substitute for it. And that's why we have you register for it before coming in. And I would say, if you haven't taken it yet, please study for that as rigorous as possible. Praxis core is definitely needed, but there's some workarounds for that. And then I sent out, but I will resend for Praxis core a comprehensive study from Khan Academy for Praxis core that has been very effective for people to pass the Praxis core as well. It's just the Praxis 2 is, it takes some studying and it's necessary to pass that particular test in your subject area.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys. Well, I think that covers a lot. Please email me if you have any questions. We'd love to hear from you. That email I send, I try to get return responses back within the 24 business hour. We, again, like I said at the top, we're super excited. We understand that it's challenging, and we appreciate your patience and engagement during this time. So with that, I will say goodbye. Again, please email me. We thank you for joining the call. And again, this is not the last time we'll talk. We will have more conversations and meetings together very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.